A girl's scream echoes through the stone corridors, sharp and fragile, quickly smothered by the heavy slam of an iron door. Her bare feet skid against the marble as two eunuchs drag her deeper into the shadows, silk torn from her body like petals stripped from a flower. The oil lamps along the passage flicker their dim light, catching the gold lattice of a barred window bars that gleam like treasure but bite like chains. Behind those bars, the muffled sounds of laughter and music drift in, cruelly reminding her that life still thrives in the palace above, as though her fate is nothing more than a forgotten whisper beneath the revelry. Her trembling hand clutches the lattice. Fingers press desperately against cold metal nails breaking as she claws for release, for breath, for something beyond the suffocating prison that now seals her future. On the other side, the night sky hangs vast and indifferent, jeweled with stars. Freedom is only a hand's breadth away, but impossibly out of reach. The eunuchs say nothing. Their silence is heavier than their grip. They have done this before. They will do it again. To them, she is not a woman, not a daughter, not a soul. She is simply another shadow to be erased. And so the procession continues deeper and deeper into the belly of the palace, where no sunlight dares trespass. Imagine her heart hammering in her chest, beating against the walls of her ribs like a trapped bird. Each breath cuts shorter, sharper. She does not know whether death waits behind the next door, or a torment far worse. What crime has she committed? What betrayal? Was it a glance too long at the Sultan? A jealous whisper from a rival concubine? A perfume laced with poison that bore her name? The truth will never be told. In this place, truth is irrelevant. Only power matters. Above her in the dazzling chambers of Topkapi, the Sultan feasts beneath jeweled chandeliers. Musicians pluck strings that sing of paradise, while courtiers laugh and toast to the empire's glory. They speak of conquest, of power, of eternity. None hear the muffled cries below. None care. For within the palace walls, life and death are dispensed not by justice, but by whim, jealousy, and the cold machinery of control. And so the girl vanishes into the labyrinth. Her voice fades, swallowed by stone and silence. Yet her story, multiplied by thousands, lingers. The harem was called the Golden Cage, a world of silk and roses, of perfume and diamonds. But behind the shimmering veil, it was a crucible of fear, where beauty was currency, obedience was survival, and failure meant annihilation. We stand at the threshold of its secrets. To understand the cruelty of its heart, we must descend into its chambers. You will hear the cries of those silenced. You will see the illusions of paradise stripped away. And you will learn why so many who entered this cage never returned. The palace rises over the Bosphorus like a dream carved in marble and gold. Its domes catch the sunlight, burning like halos, while fountains murmur in courtyards, perfumed by jasmine and rose. Visitors from distant lands, ambassadors and merchants return home whispering tales of a paradise unlike any other, a world where the Sultan lives not as a man, but as a god upon the earth. Within its walls lies the Harem, the Golden Cage. From the outside, it is spoken of with awe and envy. Travellers imagine a sanctuary of beauty, a heaven of silk-draped chambers, and women who move like living jewels. Painters in Venice and Paris dream of it as an endless festival of desire, where laughter and music float through latticed screens, and every glance promises forbidden pleasures. Step inside, and you see splendor carefully crafted to hide its chains. Endless corridors lead to vaulted chambers, their ceilings painted with constellations, as though the very stars had been captured for the Sultan's pleasure. Floors gleam with polished stone scattered with carpets from Persia and Anatolia, soft enough to swallow footsteps. Incense burns constantly, its smoke curling like phantom fingers masking the stench of fear that lingers beneath. Here dwell hundreds, sometimes thousands of women, each taken from distant corners of the world. Circassian girls prized for their pale skin and light eyes brought from the Caucasus. Slavic daughters captured in raids along the Black Sea. Georgian, Greek, Armenian, Albanian, Venetian. Torn from their families, sold in markets, renamed, remade. They are trained like instruments, taught music, dance, poetry, the art of touch and glance. Every movement rehearsed, every smile perfected, until their very bodies become weapons of seduction. To survive in this place is to play a role. Every concubine learns to mask her fear behind grace, to swallow her tears behind laughter. They are forbidden to look beyond the gilded windows, forbidden to speak their birth names, forbidden even to dream of life outside. Their value is measured in the Sultan's gaze, in the fleeting flicker of attention that might elevate them above the rest or condemn them to obscurity. Yet to the world beyond these walls they are envied. To be chosen as a concubine is to step into a paradise of jewels and silks, to eat from golden plates, to walk on carpets worth kingdoms. Letters written by visitors speak of it as an earthly Eden, a secret garden of unrivaled pleasure. But every paradise has its serpent. What those outsiders never see is the silence that follows. Laughter, the glances heavy with rivalry, the tension that hums beneath each whispered word. For the harem is not a sanctuary, it is a battlefield disguised as a garden. And the women adorned in gold are not free queens of pleasure, but prisoners locked within a cage that gleams so brightly it blinds the world to its cruelty. The heaven they were promised will soon show its true face. And beneath the silks and incense lies the first stirrings of doom. It begins not with a scream, but with a whisper. In the steaming warmth of the palace baths, women's voices curl like smoke too soft to catch, yet heavy enough to poison. A glance exchanged across perfumed water, a hand lingering too long over the polishing of jewels, a smile that hides a dagger's edge. This is how doom first takes root. Within the harem, beauty is not a blessing, but a weapon. Each woman's hair, skin, laughter, and movement are sharpened into tools of survival. And survival depends on favor, on catching the Sultan's eye for one night or perhaps a single hour. That glance can lift a concubine from obscurity to power, can make her mistress of rivals who once mocked her. But that same glance can also draw the envy of those left behind. Rivalries are not spoken aloud, but lived in silence. A comb left deliberately tangled in another's hair. Perfume replaced with a vial laced in secret powders. A slipper hidden a veil torn at the seam, forcing humiliation before attendants. These are the small betrayals invisible to outsiders, yet sharp as knives to those who live them. And then there are the sudden disappearances. A woman is seen at supper laughing, her bracelets clinking like music. By morning, her chamber is empty, her silks divided among the servants. No explanation, no farewell. Some whisper she was caught plotting, others that her beauty offended the favourites. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying. She had ceased to be useful. The concubines live in constant performance, their every breath judged and measured. Yet beneath their painted smiles burns a fear that cannot be masked. Even the Sultan himself, invisible yet omnipresent, is like a storm cloud that drifts silently until lightning strikes. One wrong word, one rumour, one unseen accusation. This is all it takes. The eunuchs, those silent guardians, hear everything. Their loyalty is to the order of the harem, not to its prisoners. They know which concubine has risen too quickly, which woman speaks too fondly of her homeland, which one cries alone in the night. They whisper in the right ears, and the palace machinery shifts its weight, crushing without mercy. But even more dangerous than eunuchs or rivals is the Sultan's mother, the Valide Sultan. From her veiled chambers she watches the women like a hawk, for she knows that a concubine's womb can change empires. A single son born of the wrong mother could tilt the balance of power forever. Thus, she decides who rises, who falls, who vanishes. The paradise begins to curdle. Beneath the music and silk, the women feel the tightening of invisible chains. They do not know when or where, but they can sense the storm is coming. A paradise this perfect cannot last. And for those within the golden cage, every whisper carries the sound of approaching doom. It happens without warning. The harem is alive with music tambourines, ringing like silver bells, as women practice their dances in silk and gold. The air is thick with jasmine, with roasted almonds and honeyed sherbets cooling on trays of hammered bronze. Laughter bubbles like wine as the younger girls rehearse lines of poetry, hoping that tonight will be the night their words will earn a smile. Everything feels safe, even joyful. And then the doors open. The chief black eunuch steps in, towering silent, his eyes unreadable. The music falters, the dancers freeze. Every woman lowers her gaze, for his presence means only one thing: someone has been chosen. At first, the silence is unbearable. He walks slowly, his sandals tapping against the polished stone, the sound echoing like a drumbeat of fate. His shadow passes over jeweled faces, painted smiles. A few women tremble. Others remain perfectly still, hearts pounding, praying his gaze will slide past them. Then his hand rises. A single finger extends. It points. The chosen concubine does not scream, not yet. Her lips part. Her breath catches her hands tighten against her robes as though she might vanish inside them. Her rivals avert their eyes. No one speaks, for to intervene is to invite death. The eunuch's grip closes around her arm, unyielding as iron. Her bracelets jingle as she is pulled away, the sound mocking her terror. She looks back, once searching for sympathy in the eyes of the women she once called sisters. But no one dares meet her gaze. Those who do cannot bear what they see, the realization that her life, her beauty, her training, all of it has crumbled into dust. The silks are stripped from her shoulders. The jewels are taken locked away to adorn another. She is dragged from the glittering halls into darker corridors where no music plays. The air grows colder, the torches dimmer. The scent of jasmine and rose fades into the musty damp of stone. She begs softly at first, then desperately. Her pleas echo off the walls, but no voice answers. The eunuchs remain silent, their duty carved into them by years of obedience. They neither comfort nor explain. They only lead her deeper toward the place from which no woman returns. By the time the final door closes behind her, the truth has struck her like a blade. There is no mistake, no misunderstanding. The harem has turned against her. The Sultan's favor has curdled into wrath, or worse, indifference. And in this world, indifference is fatal. The paradise has shattered. One finger, one gesture, has toppled her from heaven into hell. Her cries fade into silence. In the chambers above, the music begins again, louder, brighter, as though nothing has happened at all. The cell is small. Bare stone walls press close, cold enough to bite the skin. The only light seeps through a crack, above thin and grey, too faint to mark day from night. The air is damp heavy with mildew, and every breath tastes of rust and earth. It is a place built not only to contain the body, but to suffocate the mind. At first, she waits for answers. She whispers to herself that this must be a mistake, that tomorrow the doors will open and the Sultan will call her back. She rehearses the words she will say, the tears she will shed, the plea she will deliver to melt his anger. But the days crawl by and no voice comes, no hand reaches in. Hope begins to rot as surely as food left too long in the dark. The silence is alive. She hears footsteps in the distance, heavy, slow, echoing endlessly down unseen corridors. Sometimes the footsteps stop outside her door, and she freezes, clutching her own body as though she could vanish. But the door does not open. The footsteps move on. That waiting, that endless listening, becomes its own torture. Hunger gnaws at her. Trays of stale bread and thin broth slide silently into the cell, always when she sleeps as if brought by ghosts. She eats quickly, hungrily, though the food tastes of ash. Each time she wonders if this meal will be her last, if the next will be laced with poison. Loneliness grows heavier than chains. She calls out once, just once, to the guards begging for mercy, for explanation. Her voice breaks in the silence. No answer comes. Worse than anger, worse than cruelty, is indifference. It crushes her more completely than whips or fire. Her thoughts turn bitter. Faces of women she once called friends rise in her memory, women who had shared her laughter, her secrets. Did one of them whisper a lie? Did one betray her for a chance at favor? Or worse, did they stay silent, watching her dragged away without lifting a hand? In her dreams, she sees their faces smiling, jeweled eyes glittering as she falls into darkness. Time begins to warp. Hours blur into days, days into weeks. Her nails scratch the stone, tracing lines she cannot count until her fingers bleed. Sometimes she thinks she hears music above faint strains of the lute, the echo of a drum, and she wonders if the world of light and laughter is real, or if she has imagined it all. Her body weakens, but her mind suffers most. The silence digs deeper than a blade, hollowing her from within. She no longer asks why. She only waits for the sound of the final door, the sound that will end the waiting one way or another. In the belly of the palace, forgotten by the world above, she begins her descent, not into madness, but into the cruel knowledge that she was never anything more than a piece to be played and discarded in a game she never understood. The summons comes not with mercy, but with ceremony. Guards arrive at her cell in silence, their torches casting jagged shadows across the walls. She is pulled to her feet, her legs trembling from disuse, her once smooth skin marked with bruises and dust. She is given a robe not of silk, but of rough linen, as though the palace itself mocks her fall. No jewelry adorns her wrists now. No perfume clings to her hair. She is no longer a jewel in the Sultan's treasure chest. She is an accused, a shadow on trial. The chamber is small, windowless, lit by lamps that burn too brightly, their flames spitting and hissing as though eager to consume. Officials sit behind low tables stacked with scrolls, their faces pale, their eyes distant. Eunuchs stand like pillars along the walls, their presence as suffocating as stone. The Valide Sultan's seal rests on a cushion at the far end, a reminder that the invisible hand of the Sultan's mother guides everything here. The accusations come in a torrent. Treason, disloyalty, sorcery, poisoning. Whispers that she spoke against the Sultan, that she conspired with foreign powers, that she cursed rivals in the baths. None of it makes sense, yet all of it is spoken with the weight of inevitability. For here in this chamber, evidence is unnecessary. A concubine's guilt is assumed the moment her name is uttered. Witnesses appear women she once recognized as friends. They lower their eyes, their voices trembling with rehearsed lies. Yes, they say we saw her with secret letters. Yes, she placed powders in perfumes. Each word cuts deeper than a knife, for she knows their betrayal is not born of hatred, but of fear. They condemn her because to remain silent is to risk being dragged beside her. She tries to speak. Her voice rises, pleading, choking, trembling with desperation. But the officials do not listen. They record her words in cold ink, twisting them into shapes she cannot recognize. Her protests are noted not as defense, but as insolence. Every tear becomes proof of deceit. Every plea becomes evidence of guilt. The eunuchs do not meet her eyes. The scribes dip their pens with steady hands. The officials murmur among themselves as though her life were no more than a line item in an endless ledger. Justice here is not blind, it is bound and gagged, its eyes forced open only to look upon the will of power. The verdict is delivered without hesitation, without pause, without even the courtesy of suspense. She is guilty, the punishment is death. No one gasps, no one objects. The chamber remains still as though this moment has already happened 1,000 times before, and will happen 1,000 times again. The illusion of fairness crumbles, leaving only the raw truth she was condemned long before she entered this room. This trial is nothing but theatre, a cruel performance staged to give the mask of law to what is in truth murder. And so she is led away not as a woman awaiting justice, but as prey already claimed by the jaws of power. The verdict has been spoken. Death waits silent but certain. And yet, before it arrives, she is granted one last day, a ritual of farewell, not for her comfort, but for the palace's order. She is taken from the cold chamber and brought to a small room where light spills through a lattice window. For the first time in weeks, she feels the sun touch her skin. Its warmth is almost unbearable, a reminder of everything she is about to lose. She closes her eyes, savoring it, as though she could store the light within her bones, carry it with her beyond the end. A servant brings water, perfumed faintly with rose. She is bathed slowly, her body cleansed of the filth of the cell. The water runs red, where scabs break, but the hands that wash her do not pause. Her hair is oiled and combed until it gleams, her skin rubbed with powders to soften the bruises. She is dressed in clean silks, pale, unadorned, almost bridal in their simplicity. She is being prepared not for a wedding, but for her death. Her meal is placed before her rice pudding sweetened with honey, a delicacy she once relished at feasts. Tonight, it tastes like ashes. She forces herself to eat, though every bite feels like betrayal, as though her body conspires to cling to life while her fate has already been sealed. In the quiet, she writes. The eunuchs allow her paper, though they will never deliver what she pens. Her words spill in fragments, half prayers, half memories. She writes her birth name over and over, terrified it will vanish from memory once her body does. She writes of her father's voice, calling her home, of her mother's lullaby. She writes of freedom, not the gilded illusion of the palace, but the wild air of her homeland, where mountains and rivers stretched far beyond sight. The ink runs where her tears fall, smearing the words, erasing them as quickly as they appear. That night she does not sleep. She hums to herself in the darkness, the tune faint and broken like a lullaby offered to no one. From her window, she watches the moon slide across the sky, slow and inevitable. Every sound, the rustle of guards outside the distant call of night birds, the hiss of the wind feels like a farewell. When dawn comes, the lattice fills with light. The sky burns with gold, as though the heavens themselves mock her captivity with their freedom. She presses her hand against the bars, feeling the sun's warmth one last time. The world outside lives on unaware, indifferent. She whispers her mother's song to the morning, her voice trembling but steady. This is her final sunrise. It will be the last sky her eyes will ever hold, the last warmth her skin will ever know. And though the palace prepares to erase her in this moment, she still breathes, still remembers, still clings to the fragile thread of life before it is cut forever. The summons comes at dawn. Her body, still clothed in the pale silks of farewell, stiffens as the door opens. Two eunuchs step inside, their faces carved from stone. They do not speak, for words are unnecessary. Their silence tells her everything. Her time has come. Her legs tremble as she rises. The hallway beyond is cold, the air damp with stone and salt. Each step echoes a hollow drumbeat, leading her toward oblivion. She keeps her eyes lowered, but she feels the weight of the palace pressing in walls that have seen this walk countless times, walls that will never whisper of it. At the chamber's centre, a carpet has been laid plain and dark. No crowd gathers here. No witnesses cheer or mourn. The execution of a concubine is not spectacle, but secrecy carried out like a shadow erased before dawn fully blooms. Only a handful stand present eunuchs to restrain officials, to confirm a scribe to record her end as if it were a transaction. The silken cord is brought forth. It gleams faintly in the lamplight, soft and beautiful, yet more merciless than steel. No blood will stain the palace floors. No cries will echo into the courtyards. Death here is designed to be clean, invisible, forgotten. She sees it and knows. Her breath catches her chest, rising and falling too quickly, her heart a trapped bird battering its cage. For a moment she struggles reflex, not rebellion. Her wrists twist, her shoulders wrench, but the eunuchs are unyielding. Hands like iron clamp her arms, press her to the ground. The cord slips around her neck. The silk is cool at first, almost tender, as though caressing her skin. Then it tightens. Her eyes widen. Her mouth opens in a silent cry, lips shaping words no one will hear. Her body convulses, heels, scraping desperately against the carpet. The eunuchs pull steady and practice their faces unmoved as life drains from her in choking gasps. Her vision darkens at the edges. Sounds distort the hiss of her own breath, the rush of blood pounding in her ears. She claws at the cord, her fingers frantic, but silk offers no mercy. It only bites deeper. In her last moments, memories flash the mountains of her childhood, her mother's lullaby, the warmth of the sun against her skin that final morning. They blur, fracture, vanish like glass, shattering in silence. Her body jerks once, twice, then stills. The cord is loosened, but she does not rise. Her head falls to the side, eyes fixed on nothing, lips parted as if whispering her last word into the void. There is no applause, no weeping. Only the rustle of robes, the scratching of the scribe's pen, the faint creak of silk coiling back into its box. Her death, like her life, is reduced to an entry in a ledger, a shadow erased from the palace walls. The golden cage has claimed another soul. The chamber is still. Her body lies crumpled on the carpet, fragile as a broken doll. The eunuchs release their grip and step back, their faces unchanged, their breathing steady. For them, this was not murder, but duty, not cruelty, but routine. They have performed this task countless times, and they will perform it countless more. Death is not an ending here, it is a procedure. The scribe leans forward, his reed pen scratching across parchment. He writes without emotion, reducing her life, her beauty, her memories into a single line. By order of the Sultan, one concubine dispatched. No name, no detail, no humanity. Just a number in the endless account of the palace. With a final blot of ink, she ceases to exist. Her body is wrapped, swiftly stripped of silk, bound in coarse linen. No rites are read, no prayers whispered. She is not given the dignity of a grave within the gardens. Instead, she is carried through a hidden passage, her form concealed beneath layers of cloth, as though shame itself clings to her. Outside, the Bosphorus waits. The water is calm, its surface shimmering with the first light of day. The eunuchs move silently, their footsteps muffled on the damp earth of the shoreline. Weighted stones are tied to her shrouded body. No words mark the act, no tears acknowledge it. With a single heave, she is cast into the dark water. The splash is brief. The waves fold over her, pulling her down into the black. The river accepts her without question, erasing the last trace of her existence as effortlessly as the palace erased her name. Within moments, the surface stills, reflecting only the sky above. She is gone, swallowed by silence. Back within the palace, life resumes as if nothing has occurred. The courtyards fill once more with music. Servants carry trays of sherbet and pomegranate seeds. Concubines rehearse their dances, their voices lilting with rehearsed laughter. The Sultan in his jewelled hall dines beneath chandeliers of crystal, oblivious or indifferent to the life extinguished just beneath his walls. Her chamber is already cleaned. The silks she once wore are distributed to others. Her name is forbidden, struck from lips before it can be spoken. If her face is remembered, it is only as a fleeting ghost quickly buried beneath the weight of rivalry and survival. The harem devours its own. It leaves no graves, no songs, no memories. Only silence, silence, that hangs heavier than screams. Silence that kills more surely than cords of silk. In that silence lies the greatest cruelty of all, that she never truly lived, not as herself, not as the girl she once was. She was property, possession, shadow. And now she is nothing. The palace walls do not mourn. They have seen this too many times. The silence is not grief. It is hunger waiting for the next soul to be consumed. Centuries have passed, yet the silence of the golden cage still lingers like dust clinging to forgotten tapestries. The harem itself is gone. Its corridors emptied its chambers, now nothing more than exhibits for curious tourists who marvel at the mosaics and gilded doors. They see beauty. They do not hear the cries that once echoed through those walls. They walk freely through rooms where women lived and died imprisoned, never realizing the cost of the splendor before their eyes. History remembers the sultans, their conquests, their palaces, their power. But the women of the harem remain shadows, their names erase their stories untold. For every powerful Valide sultan who wielded influence, there were countless others whose lives ended in silence, whose bodies were carried to the river and dropped into oblivion. They do not appear in chronicles or monuments. They are not sung in poems. Their memory survives only in whispers, in the dark spaces of history. And yet the paradox remains: the harem is celebrated in art, fetishized in fantasy, painted by European artists as a paradise of beauty and pleasure. They saw the jewels, the silks, the dances, but they did not see the fear. They dreamed of opulence, but they did not hear the muffled cries behind the lattice screens. The irony is almost unbearable. What was truly a prison has been remembered by the world as a garden of delights. But what is more haunting than the erasure of the past is the reflection it casts upon the present. The golden cage was not merely stone and iron. It was power made flesh, the domination of one will over thousands of lives. It teaches us that cruelty can wear a mask of luxury, that captivity can be gilded, until even the prisoners begin to doubt their chains. How many cages still exist today, gleaming brightly enough to blind us to the suffering within? How many voices remain silenced, not by cords of silk, but by indifference, by fear, by the careful rewriting of history? The harem stands as both symbol and warning. It reminds us that power unchecked consumes the innocent, that beauty can conceal horror, That silence, above all, is the most merciless executioner. The girl we followed, nameless, now was only one among thousands. Her story is not unique. It is multiplied across generations of women who entered the palace as daughters, sisters, captives, and were erased as shadows. Their suffering has not been mourned, but it has not vanished. It lingers, waiting to be remembered. And so we end with a question. One that history cannot answer, but which still demands to be asked when luxury itself becomes a cage, when power devours the powerless. How many golden prisons remain around us, glittering so brightly that we mistake them for paradise?